Oh, yes. Welcome, everyone. So you know me. My name's Ingrid Thompson. I'm I'm wearing to have my our fellow Wikimedian and our fellow Wikibrarian here, Alice Chibombo, who is going to introduce WikiSource, which is one of the Wikimedia projects, sister projects to Wikipedia. And it's probably not one that is too well known to us, but it is one that librarians have been involved in elsewhere in the world. A little bit about this. Some of you may well have, when you perhaps were doing the AFLIA courses, have met Alice online. But Alice is a librarian from Uganda. She's currently actually working for the Wikimedia Foundation. She's a contributor to Wikipedia, Wikidata, which is another campaign, another project that we really do need to unpack, and WikiSource and the Wikimedia community user group in Uganda. And yeah, Alice is actually pretty inspiring. She started out in, what was it, 2017, Alice? Was that it?
And 2016, more like, well, the difference is months.
And Alice is really, I keep wanting to say, I want to be like Alice when I grow up. But Alice has been heavily involved in Wikimedia projects. She's active in English Wikimedia, in the One Lib One Ref campaign. I think you've probably got more than 9,000 edits. And you Comedian in residence at AFLIA, which was where I met Alice. So Alice, I'm very happy that you're going to be able to tell us all about WikiSource. So I'm going to hand over to you. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. People can put questions in, and we'll take it from there. But I'm very happy to see everyone online, that you found us.
Thank you very much, Ingrid and colleagues. You're not able to see me, but just know I'm smiling. And I am very happy on this Friday afternoon, the 11th of October, for a number of reasons in no particular order, that I'm able to share what it is that I know with my professional colleagues, that in the audience there are so many people who have been part of my journey up till now, since 2020, but also the fact that all of us that are here are actually eager for more knowledge and want to spread the wiki gospel in our communities. But also beyond that, I'm just hopeful that this session will be, the catalyst that's needed for us to go back into our communities. I keep saying that not everything is for everyone in Wikipedia, in the Wikimedia universe, but there is something for everyone. So in case you've been getting bored with editing on Wikipedia, this is the place for you. In case you've been getting bored with contributing to Wikidata, this is also the place for you. So my name is Alice Chibombo Ekanya. I currently serve as the Senior Program Officer for Libraries at the Wikimedia Foundation, but in my 9 to 5, I'm to be found at the Guti Zentrum in Kampala. And I'm just an ordinary librarian wearing glasses, glaring at people, wearing compressor socks, and asking people where the books I lent them are, and carrying out the basic technical duties. So that is who I am in my 9 to 5 and in my wiki life. So as you may know, the the recently concluded Wiki Indaba conference in Johannesburg saw a number of us Wikibrarians represented on the ground. And there were many questions that came up in the discussions that we had. People were wondering, we've been through all these courses. What next? What's the next territory? Maybe I'm not bored. This is not appropriate for me. It's not my field. I'm an archivist. And in the Wikimedia world, when we tend to talk about GLAM, the truth is we are excluding galleries, archives, and museums and academics, and we focus solely on librarians. But we also have very good siblings in the archivists. And that is why we need to talk about WikiSource, not just for librarians, but I will also refer to us as information professionals. So let's start. Now, in this group, I see that not all of us are actually new to the Wikimedia Foundation, but it would be good to understand the Wikimedia Foundation projects, and that will give us a better context of understanding what WikiSource is. So for those who might not be conversant with the Wikimedia projects, I think most of us only know Wikipedia, or that was our first entry into it. But Wikipedia is only the encyclopedia project from the Wikimedia movement. There are different projects that are dedicated to the different facets of information. And as of March 2024, there are around 13 projects that deal with collections, that deal with encyclopedic knowledge, that deal with structured data. And on my screen is something that is flashing on and off. And these are the Wikimedia projects. Obviously, there is Wikipedia, which you know, which is the encyclopedia project. There is WikiSource, which we are going to be talking about, that deals with archival material that is in the public domain. There is Wikimedia Commons, that is a repository for anything image and audio that is free and in the public domain. There is Wikiquote to cater for all those long lost attributions of wise sayings. There is a Wiktionary for us who are interested in curating the words that are in our languages. There is Wikinews for those who claim, you see, we can't buy newspapers. There is Wikispecies for those who are interested in botany, in zoology, taxidermy, you know, everything that is related to the animal and plant kingdom. I was not very good with biology. There's Wikivoyage, that is a very good travel guide. There is also Wikidata, that most of us also know, that deals with structured data. But then again, there is MetaWiki, which is the public accountability project that we have. So if you are around Wikimedia circles, most of the time, the first point of asking will be, is this page on Meta? And this is not to be confused with Meta, you know, Facebook and all the other projects that are under the metaverse. So these are the Wikimedia Foundation projects. And they are all related and united by the same goal, vision, and mission that I can't quote verbatim, but it revolves around the sum of all human knowledge being freely accessible to all, regardless of barriers. So ladies and gentlemen, those are the Wikimedia projects, and we are going to delve deeper into how they relate to our sister WikiSource. So now that we know the Wikimedia Foundation projects, then what is WikiSource? We've heard about Wikipedia, we've heard about Wikidata, we've heard about so many other things, but what is WikiSource, you know? Even if your boss asked you, what are you attending? Well, I'm attending something on WikiSource. So what are you attending? Yeah. So this is the logo for WikiSource. If you will look on the left hand of the screen, my orientation is just mixed up. Look at the image. So in its most primary sense, it's a free online library of primary sources. hosted by the Wikimedia Foundation, and it is also a digital archive of texts. And these are just not texts, but these texts are primary sources. You know, when you're working in Wikipedia, you're aggregating secondary sources, tertiary sources. But in WikiSource, we are dealing with primary sources. And these are original materials, you know. Oh, the diary of Alice. Okay, if I become important in the future, and you know my diary can be auctioned at Sotheby's, they'll say, oh, the diary of Alice has gone on sale. It's a primary source. I pity the people who will read that material, you know, books, articles, documents, manuscripts that provide first-hand information or direct evidence. Since the majority of us here are information professionals, I will not labor to explain what primary sources are. And this digital archive that is WikiSource also contains, and it is a must as we're going to see, works that are no longer under copyright or they have been released under a free license that allows unrestricted access. You can reuse, you can adapt, you can do anything, but the access is unrestricted. But you see, when these sources are existing out there, we won't have access to them unless they are not only digitized, but also transcribed. So as we will look at the WikiSource interface, you'll find that many of these texts are scanned and they are typed out and they are made available to you and me in a digital format. And there's also a mechanism for us to proofread and to validate to ensure accuracy. Okay, so let's just do a little bit of a deeper dive into WikiSource, and we need to know when it came into being and why. The when not so much, but the why very much. You know, last year we were celebrating 20 years of Wikipedia and everything, but then WikiSource also silently turned 20 years old. So we are dealing with a project that is soon to be 21 years old. And when it was introduced to the community, it was introduced as the name under the name Project Sourceberg, which is a play on Project Gutenberg, for those that know Project Gutenberg. And at that point, its primary aim was to provide a free repository for source texts and also support verifiability in projects like Wikipedia, but also act as a platform that would host free texts in as many languages and translations, because some of the existing solutions that would have been its equivalent were monolingual. But this was a platform that wanted to host all these texts in as many languages and also provide for translations. So as of September 2024, there were WikiSource subdomains for 79 languages. And of these, 77 were active and 2 were closed. When we talk about subdomains, it really just points to the fact that WikiSource exists in many languages. I know my language, Luganda, is there. And I know also that there are other languages in South Africa. I think there's an Afrikaans WikiSource. So you might, other fact checkers will need to check on that. And 2 are closed because, like any other project, it needs a minimum threshold of activity to exist. And I don't think there were more than 500 texts on these, so they had to be closed. So between the 77 subdomains, there are at least 6.1 articles, and the 2 that were closed, between the 2 of them, they had 13. So as you can see, the minimum threshold of activity and contribution was not being met. Now, when it comes to the users that participate on it, any and every one of us who has an active account on any of the Wikimedia projects is a potential user. But you will become a real user when you actually go onto WikiSource and begin giving some edits here and there, validating, transcribing, categorizing, providing metadata. So the statistics are alarming, and I need the mathematicians to do the maths. So there are at least 4.9 registered users, but only 2,500 of those are recently active, that within the last 12 months, they've been to WikiSource, uploaded something, indexed something. So with this in mind, I think there is an opportunity for many of us to begin contributing in this area for a number of selfish and non-selfish reasons, but those are the statistics for you so that you can make an informed decision as you seek to get engaged with WikiSource. So now this is related to the second slide, and I just wanted to bring to you how WikiSource is related to other projects and how it actually supports. Because remember, one of the original aims was to support verifiability and provide data, meaningful data for other projects within the Wikimedia family. So obviously there's Wikipedia, for which we all know. And within Wikipedia, there are many articles, and these are often linked to WikiSource texts. So many times in an article, when you see something being quoted verbatim, or so and so said this on this occasion, most probably they are actually linked to that came from WikiSource, and given time, I will show you where the icons are, and you can then know that this was sourced directly from WikiSource, to bulk up and provide verifiability. Then there's Wiktionary, and WikiSource text can actually be used to illustrate word usage and definitions on Wiktionary. So Wiktionary is a collection of words, a dictionary, yeah, but the wiki version of it. And under that, people have been doing language preservation and also showing the different words, their etymology, their usage in context. And Wiktionary shows that. Now, there are many words that are in our modern parlance for which we don't know the origin, for which we don't know the context, and some might be confident enough to argue that that is not the spelling, and some of these words have evolved with time. So because they're archival texts, primary sources, in WikiSource, we can actually look into WikiSource to see the usage of these words and the growth of these words in their etymology and their usage and their context. And then there's Wikidata, and Wikidata provides metadata for WikiSource texts. You can have a text on WikiSource and actually create a WikiSource item for that text, for that entry on WikiSource. So the most common culprits are the author and the publication information. This is the ISBN of that, if it came, the authority control, it all resides in Wikidata. There's structured data about the text that we see in WikiSource. And then when we go to Wikimedia Commons, I think this is the one that is really most closely related to WikiSource, because as we will see later, the information and the text that we have from WikiSource, they don't exist in isolation. They came from somewhere. They came from external sources. They could have come from the Internet Archive. They could have come from the Hathi Trust or anybody else who could have supplied us that information. But they just didn't go directly to WikiSource. They had to go through a process. So you find that when we acquire and we extract that information, maybe through digitization or just uploading a scan from somewhere, The first area where we put that text is Wikimedia Commons. And then from Wikimedia Commons, there are tools for us to bring it into WikiSource. So I always say that Wikimedia Commons is the park or the bus park from which every other thing is derived or actually travels from to get those. So you will find that most of these texts have to exist or be available in Wikimedia Commons before they can be brought into Wikisource as a platform. And then there's Wikiquote for those who have been active with that. I think our colleagues in the Wiki Women's movement are active in Wikiquote. So, every time you hear people attributing things and saying, a wise man once said this, a wise woman once said this, but nobody knows who that wise woman is or wise man. It could be a variation on the same theme. We have different ways of saying it in our cultures, but we are all alluding to the same theme. But then again, another danger with not knowing who said what is a lot of knowledge is lost and a lot of things are misattributed and they change. Worst case scenario, the course of history, or they actually change the information flow. So in Wikiquote, because we have primary sources, we are able to back this up uh, with the primary sources from Wikisource and bring them into Wikiquote. And then there's Wikibooks, and this is for my colleagues who are in academia, where you can actually start something from scratch. But if you're looking to do research, Wikisource will be a very good place for you because it has the primary sources that you see. And you can link to Wikisource texts for reference and verifiability. There's a moving truck with some noise behind me, so bear with me. And then we also have Wikiversity for those who are looking at curating learning resources, curating projects for their students, especially those who are in the humanities. Wikiversity derives a lot of its content from Wikisource, and the Wikisource text can actually be used to back up a lot of what is in Wikiversity. So that is how it is related in a nutshell to a number of projects. And then we can move on. If you have any questions about this so far, please put them in the chat area, and then we'll be able to move on. So we talked about texts. When something is in Wikisource, it's referred to as a text. It might not even be primarily a text, but it is a text. That's the technical name for it. So where do we get the things that we see on Wikisource? Who is providing the items that we are digitizing and uploading onto Commons to put them onto Wikisource? Who's providing, who owns these primary sources that we are uploading? And there are a number of sources where we can get acquisitions for Wikisource. First and foremost, with no negotiation, is public domain works. Works that are not burdened by copyright, books, articles, and other documents whose copyright has expired. It's out there, it's in the public domain. That's self-explanatory. We have user uploads. You and I can scan or type a text and upload it. Please make sure that this text doesn't have any copyright attached to it. Yeah, we have transcriptions. There are many audios that we have on Wikimedia Commons, and you will find that there are some volunteers who are going to transcribe the texts from these images or audio recordings. And I think our colleagues doing Wikisource in India have done a very good job of transcribing, oh, this is an audio book by so and so, you can transcribe it and put it on Wikisource. Then we have government documents which really are being held in trust for the public or are just there in the they are just there for the public. So you have official documents and records, for example, constitutions, but it does not include things like census results, yeah, malnutrition indexes and that kind of thing. And then you have historical documents. These are the primary sources we were talking about. Letter written by Alice on the eve of her, coming into big money. This is the last letter she wrote as a poor woman. Maybe it will become a historical document, yeah. Journals and other historical proceedings. But I'm yet to see a copy of the Magna Carta on WikiSource. And then you have digital libraries and collections. So WikiSource maintains, the Wikimedia Foundation maintains partnerships with these digital libraries, for example, Google Books and Internet Archive. And to that end, they have actually developed tools that help us take or import that kind of content into the Wikimedia projects. And then we have OCR, which is the automated conversion of scanned text into editable digital formats. But this is more understandable when you are actually working with the scanned text themselves. Then we have donations. Publishers, authors, or institutions can donate text and say, from our collection, we have donated this to you. Do as you will with it. Then there's classical literature, works from renowned authors and literary classics, especially those first editions that are not so annotated. And then collaborations, and these are partnerships with other Wikimedia projects, which points to the previous slide I mentioned about the way it supports and is integrated with other Wikimedia projects. Okay, Ingrid, are there any questions on that before we proceed to the policies of WikiSource?
No, there are no questions at this point.
All right. Okay, so if you've been around the Wikimedia projects for a while, you know that each one has policies that not only govern human behavior, but policies that govern the kind of behavior we manifest, policies that could regulate the kind of content to mitigate so many things that could go wrong with a crowd-sourced project that deals with archival material. So these are some of the policies of WikiSource. There are not so many, and they've been derived through community consensus, but they make all the difference. When everything fails, these are the policies that we fall back on. So the first policy is the copyright policy. All contributions to WikiSource are released under the Creative Commons Attribution 4.0. Anything that is not that, thank you very much, but we will not be able to deal with it. So when you share things and you say, I've donated for WikiSource, please be aware that this is the license under which you're sharing. So what do we have under the copyright policy? There's fair use. I think those of us who have been in publishing and academia and even in the libraries, when we are asked, photocopy this for me, our teacher said this and this, there's fair use, you're allowed to copy a few pages for your benefit as long as it is not financial. So fair use is the concept that copyrighted work can be legally used without paying licensing fees or even receiving permission of the copyright holder. On WikiSource, it is explicitly prohibited. So it is an all or nothing, because we're not dealing with anything that has to do with copyright. So fair use will be denying some people the financial benefit that they could derive, but it will also deny us people call us wiki sorcerers, it will also deny us the full benefit of the text. And there are also the contributor rights and obligations are widely acknowledged. And for that reason, we insist that anything that is not in the public domain, we cannot deal with it. Yeah, because if it's not in the public domain, so many other things have to come up. And those are some of the barriers to information that we talk about. If it's not in the public domain, then let it be released under a license that is compatible with the free content distribution. And these are the Creative Commons licenses that we are talking about. And then, like with very many other Wikimedia projects, the neutral point of view is a very big deal in WikiSource. The information must, there's no negotiation, it must be presented in a fair, balanced, and impartial manner. Yeah. That, and how do we uphold the policy of the neutral point of view? First and foremost, everything has to be verbatim and it's in original context, yeah? So present text as they appear in the original source and in their original context. Nothing like guessing. I think he meant to say this here, so let me put it there. No, do not do that. Then there's the concept of faithful formatting. Retain the original formatting, the typography, and the layout, and this will in turn preserve the text integrity and authenticity. When I was in primary, I had a teacher who used to emphasize paragraphs and what they meant. And it got to a point when to measure, the standard measure for a paragraph was to put your pinky finger against the margin and see where the first notch is. And then from there onwards, you can measure the beginning of the paragraph. And he mentioned that, you see, if you don't observe that, text runs into each other, meanings are distorted, and the whole drama of the story is just misplaced. So the same happens with Wikisource. If it is a comma, it is a comma. If it is presented to you in portrait or landscape, preserve that. If it is a letters, words are italicized, that is it. That's their style of writing. So faithful formatting helps us uphold the neutral point of view. And then there's the clear attribution. Everything must be clearly attributed. And this is where the concept of provenance comes in. By the time we get these items to put them into WikiSource, at times we ask that they're in a fairly good condition so that we can see their provenance. You know, where did it come from? Who was its original author? This is an annotated edition and that sort of thing. So the attribution must be clear so that you're not giving the version of the text that represents the views of certain sect A or breakaway cult B. And then there's no editorialization or interpretation. So at times we are prone to deleting, especially when you see maybe a word has been repeated twice. Like, for example, I might be saying a story to a friend and I say, she had to go. Well, in English, it's proper English, but to another person saying, so why was there a repetition of had? And you know, it's all part of the story. So please do not delete unnecessarily. Do not add things, please. And do not change things that could alter the original meaning. Also, do not attempt to interpret, oh, I think this is what he meant. But you know, that is the word that they were using then. That was the spelling of the word, yeah? Do not add editorial footnotes or annotations that could represent a particular view. You know, you're in the footnotes You see, he used the word water, but in his area, they were saying that this is what water means. Therefore, the correct word is, please, no interpretations on WikiSource to uphold the neutral point of view. And then this is also one, none of the policies is more important than each other, but they work hand in hand. And we have the inclusion policy. It really goes hand in hand with the copyright policy. And what it does, it simply outlines and defines what can be included or not, basing against certain criteria. So it includes, excludes, but also focuses on adding value to texts. So in the inclusion policy, the criteria they look at and focus on when they want to include something on WikiSource is that the work has to be in the public domain or freely licensed. That it has to be a source document. Remember, we are emphasizing primary sources, non-copyrighted texts, government works where possible. You could also include scientific works, but they need to have verifiable scholarly review. And we also look at the criteria of, is it a classic work or does it have some historical significance? Now, if anything comes up and it is copyrighted, or it is the original research or analysis, or it's promotional or consists of advertising material, that is not welcome on WikiSource. You also have unstable or volatile texts, things that are in the current news, theories that are being debated, things that are likely to change with time. Those are excluded. You also have partial extracts. Those are the things I was talking about in fair use, and anonymous text. We can't tell the source of this thing. We don't know the provenance, but somebody out there is saying that, oh yeah, guys, I've contributed, but we don't know the source of it. Like, where did it come from to be with us? And those are some of the things that we look at when we are excluding text to be included on WikiSource. And then we also emphasize the value to texts. So each WikiSource, the 77 subdomains, only accepts texts that are written in that language. So if it's Afrikaans WikiSource, I cannot include an English text. I cannot include a Yoruba text. I cannot include a Luganda text. And the inclusion policy, therefore, aims to grow these language WikiSource projects. And then there are the annotations. So previously published texts, versions of texts with annotations as a priority because they may contain more up-to-date information. And that's why when you go to WikiSource, you will see many editions of the same book. And then there's also multimedia as part of adding value to texts. So a lot of these texts their quality and their presentation can greatly be improved. So I could scan and upload a text that has an illustration, a map of this and this place in this and this time, a photo of the author when they had just arrived in a certain location somewhere else. But we really like if there could be published illustrations or photographs from or about the book and they're out of copyright. And some of these illustrations could also include the book covers, because I know that there are some collector's items that include a certain book cover that was published by a certain publisher X in this era. So adding value to text is something that we really emphasize under the inclusion policy. But we also look at original contributions of audio recordings, diagrams, or other content. At times you could have an audiobook that you could link, and that is part of the inclusion policy. And I'd like to continue and wax a little bit lyrical on the inclusion policy of WikiSource. So when it comes to the inclusion and the exclusion, most of the criteria is derived through a community consensus. And every day, new challenges crop up. They may be new to you as a recent user, but you'll find that there are some of the variations of the standard issues that plague the things that we might see on WikiSource. So how do we deal with that when it comes to including and excluding? When it comes to the community, previous decisions inform current ones. There is a lot of documentation. So in the event that something that was similar to this happened, what was the community consensus on that? What decision was made about including or excluding specific texts? And that is something that guides the inclusion policy. So the past actually has a hand in the present and in the future. And then when it comes to the decisions, also consistency is key. And the community consensus can be reached by community members. And application of this inclusion policy helps ensure fairness and predictability so that I do not use one weighing scale to judge individual X's work or contribution, and I'm using another measure. So it has to be consistent. Again, precedents can help resolve disputes. So in cases of disagreement or uncertainty, we go back into the past to see what was the consensus then? Does it hold the same? Or can we contribute to this discussion to see that this is changed? Community consensus matters. And as you will see, some of the areas for you to participate is joining in discussions, debates, and consensus, because there are things that come up that pose a potential threat to the community, but they are not applicable to your area. The publishing industry or the evolution of written text in South Africa is very different from what it is like in Uganda, from what it is like in Sri Lanka, Nepal, Estonia, name it. But then the community is now making a decision that is going to affect everybody, irrespective of where you are. So you need to participate in these discussions and look at and contribute to the inclusion policy. But also, like they say, the library is a growing organism. Policy is also evolving and it is a growing organism. So much as precedents can inform the evolution of our policy, the community also needs to adapt to new challenges, new legislation, or shifts in community values. That something that held fast 1 or 2 years ago might not hold fast that much because, there have been changes in local legislation, or there've been changes in policy in the locale, or maybe a value of the Wikimedia Foundation under which we contribute. So this is just a summary of the policies and their results. Like I mentioned, there are 3. So the copyright policy helps us to balance the need to make knowledge accessible with the need to respect the rights of the creators and authors of this work. So when it is in the public domain, they more or less have no right. They can't, begin deriving any financial benefit from that. That's why we wait for such a time X. So the copyright policy helps us avoid legal issues. It helps us respect authors' rights. It helps us collectively adhere to international copyright laws. and it also provides clear guidelines to you and me on how we can support the growth of public domain. And the neutral point of view has the result of maintaining credibility and reliability of the content that we see. And it also demonstrates our commitment to ethical standards. And the inclusion policy has the result of ensuring that the library or WikiSource contains high quality, freely accessible texts that contribute to the public domain and support research. But it also ensures that the site remains fair, that the WikiSource site remains predictable, that the WikiSource site is still under the management and the governance of the community, but that we are also adaptable and acknowledge the reality of the changing landscape. So, much as these are all good things and bad things, we are preaching from a place where we have a vested interest in the outcome. We need to be realistic and also acknowledge that it is not the best solution. It is also not the worst. And in between there, it has some shortcomings and there are criticisms of the project known as WikiSource. So they are not that many, and they could be a repetition, but they are what they are. So the first is the quality and accuracy concerns. Some people, when you and I get there, maybe we are rushed, maybe we are new, we don't know what to do. We do not thoroughly proofread or validate the things that we see. And for that reason, the quality of the text is impacted by errors, inaccuracies, and outright omissions because everybody is doing what they think they know on this platform. Then there's the lack of expertise. Some texts may require specialized knowledge or expertise to accurately transcribe, proofread, or validate. And this happens in areas where there are handwritten texts that are on material that how can I put it, that are on material that is facing some kind of danger, or happens with a language that is possibly going extinct and not many of us can speak it. And the machine translation, because you and I do not know that language, we don't know if what they are telling us is right or wrong. So some texts require expertise. And then there are language and cultural barriers. And this contributes a lot to some of the discrepancies or the gaps that we see in WikiSource. So the content and community may be dominated by certain languages and culture, and that potentially limits the global reach and diversity of WikiSource. English WikiSource is one of the largest WikiSources available. And then, after there, you have WikiSource in French, WikiSource in German, WikiSource in Polish. But notice that these are all written in an alphabet that we know and in a language that is known. So what happens to a WikiSource that doesn't have that sort of content to contribute to, or there's no language for that particular content. For example, I want to contribute a text in Luganda, but there's no Luganda WikiSource, just as an example, yeah? So the language and the cultural barriers can create challenges in terms of consistency, growth, and quality, as well as communication among volunteers, especially the communication bit of it. There's also the challenge of limited coverage and selection bias. So WikiSource many times does not have a comprehensive collection of texts. and the selection of works may be biased to certain works, authors, or topics. This is compounded by existing laws, by the history of literacy of a nation. So you'll find that when they're talking about classical works, classical literature, a lot of the work of Shakespeare is being represented. But you mean to tell me that there are no classic texts in Senegal or in Uganda or in Tanzania or Botswana, their version of their classic texts? They are there, but maybe they're affected because they are not yet in the public domain, things like that. And then at times, the content that you find on WikiSource may not be comprehensive, and there are gaps in certain languages, subjects, or time periods. Some people their nations maybe have a history of censorship. So you will find that during that period, there wasn't a lot of creative output in the form of literature. Or maybe a certain nation came late into functional literacy, so there were not that many published works or even subjects. And I always give this example about subjects. If we are to look at the books on WikiSource that are from the south of Africa, mining is a big thing. So you're going to find very, very many books from the south of Africa in WikiSource that are dedicated to mining, geology, etc., everything that revolves around that. It's not a big thing in Africa. So in East Africa. So you're going to find one or two texts. So those are gaps in subjects, those are gaps in languages, or as well as time periods. So we need to be mindful of that through no fault of our own. And then another shortcoming is competition from other sources. So WikiSource faces competition from other online libraries, archives, and sources, and it can make it harder to attract users and contributors. Maybe the other online libraries, you do not need to be logged in to actually consume. And then, for example, when you come to WikiSource, the platform demands that you need a user account. To contribute, you must have had at least 10 edits. The account must have been four days old. So those are some of the barriers that can be imposed by our internal policies. But nevertheless, regardless of the good they serve, they pose a challenge. And then WikiSource depends on volunteers like you and me. But the truth is, all of us have sacrificed something to be here. Yeah. It could be that you logged off early from work. You worked overtime yesterday to make time for this. I don't know. But it depends on you and me. And you and I have competing interests. And at a certain point, we are less likely to invest time in WikiSource, which is not paying us because there are no medals for this. Yeah. This is just contribution to the sum of all human knowledge. Then there are technical challenges. When you're new to WikiSource, the truth is it is straightforward, but it is not straightforward. So the infrastructure of the platform and the formatting, they tend to be unyielding and they can be very unfriendly if you're new to it. And it can make it difficult for you and I to navigate or contribute. And it is compounded by a lack of electronic gadgets because I don't know who edits WikiSource on a mobile phone. And yet that's the first tool that we reach to. So most editors are normally on a desktop computer or on a laptop. And then there's the adaptation to changing copyright laws. I think in every country, at least in Uganda, every day there's some discussion about the copyright law, what needs to be changed, what needs to be decommissioned, what no longer serves the purpose? How are we adapting to changes? Things like AI are now coming into it. How are we dealing with that? So the platform and the community must be vigilant and stay up to date with the changing laws and the regulations. And this can be not only complex, but also very time consuming, keeping up with these changes that come from the legal environment. So now that we all know that, and we are now rational, probably excited, what are the opportunities for us as librarians within WikiSource? So, without making you jealous, I don't know which slide I should go to first. Maybe I'll go to the other. I'm glad to report that a number of our colleagues have been able to find their way in the WikiSource verse and have been contributing, but we will get to that after here. But there are 4 broad areas in which we can contribute very specific things. We have content-related opportunities, we have organization and maintenance, we have community engagements, but we also have special projects that can be supplemented by funds from the Wikimedia Foundation or even from mission-aligned partners like I think the British Library Endangered Archives program is giving out something now. So with the content-related opportunities, if you've noticed that there are gaps in some content, you can digitize this content and upload it, as well as proofread it for accuracy when it has been uploaded. You can also create and edit WikiSource pages in your chosen language. You can transcribe and validate texts. So this is editor speak, transcribe, oh, this is what it is. Let me see that I do a faithful reproduction of it. So I bring it to you in a platform that is freely accessible. And then you can also add metadata and categorization. I think this is indexing and cataloging, because for every text, there are different access points to it, the name of the author, the era, the country, the subject. Some people are interested in adding that sort of metadata and adding more value. And then there's the organization and the maintenance. Just like it happens in many other projects, the texts and the material and the content on WikiSource needs not to only be indexed, but also categorized. There's creating and managing WikiSource namespaces. You could be the one to start the namespace for your language, and then developing and maintaining library-related templates, especially when it comes to automating and making things easy. And then there's maintaining consistency and quality standards. And that reminds me of the wiki norms that Ingrid keeps talking about. They're always looking for, let me correct one thing here. Let me take this out. Let me add something here. So you can do that instead of, saying, I'm not going to validate or proofread. And then there's community engagement. There's participating in the community discussions from which consensus that affects us is derived. Then there's collaborating with other editors. And then one of the challenges that I've noticed, especially when it comes to doing my WikiSource events, is that at times you want to see something demonstrated or to have that demonstration shown to your colleagues, but then there's no information institution that can host you maybe to see what the digitization process is like. So you can give space, or you yourself can participate in WikiSource events, but you can also develop and lead training sessions like this one. And then there are special projects. Maybe you have a collection that you want to donate. So you can partner with libraries and archives for content donation. You can, I think, seek for funds to help you contribute that. Even through your collection, you're able to develop and suggest WikiSource collections for subjects or languages to fill in the gaps. You're able to create WikiSource-based educational resources, especially those who are teaching drama and literature. These are the texts that you need. Then you can conduct research using WikiSource data, but you can also develop tools and scripts for WikiSource, things that automate the work and make it very easy. So I'm glad to report to you that over the last 2 years, we have not been sleeping on the job. And most of the projects that you see here that are happening, it is librarians who have been at the forefront of bringing WikiSource into the community. So in September 2022, under the collective of AFLIA, we had an introduction to WikiSource. And then in December of that year, our colleagues in Uganda did an introduction to WikiSource for that community. And in June of the next year, we followed it up with a glam on tour, and we visited a university library where we were taken to a digitization unit to show us, because it's hard to explain or show some of these things when somebody doesn't know. So what is the process? When you talk about digitization, when you want to come up with concepts for WikiSource, what are we talking about? So we went and visited a digitization unit, and those are some of the things that I was telling about. You can host your community and showcase some of these projects. Then in April of this year, our colleagues in Senegal held specifically a specific introduction to WikiSource, and the audience was very specific for females. And this is also part of filling the gaps that we see. And they concentrated on works that had been written by female authors, because at times you'll see a dominance of male authored texts. And also there is the Code for Africa introduction to WikiSource series that happened in between August and September. And in Uganda, currently, we are also working with a group of university students to introduce them to WikiSource and also help them open their minds to other opportunities. And the group is very specific. We emphasize that we would only be taking students who study library and information science, as well as records and archives management, because this would be an extension of their learning, and they would be able to appreciate some of these processes that they are learning about in class and seeing them applied in the real world. So there are many things that are happening, that have happened, that are happening, and with your support, there are so many other things that are going to be happening in the near future. So I talked a lot about community and everything, but I think I didn't update this, but there's a WikiSource Telegram group, and the link is there. I will share an updated slide for this. There's also the WikiSource mailing list, and there's also a WhatsApp group for African Wikimedians who are active on WikiSource, where we are talking about WikiSource as a community. People are presenting the kind of ideas and concepts that they want to see, what are the potential challenges, and we are curating all this information, hoping to get some momentum for other activities. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, that is an introduction to WikiSource. Now, Ingrid, there are so many other things we haven't talked about.
I
So
know.
tell the community that there is a part 2 of this, and I'll stop sharing my screen now. Or let me just go back to our first slide so that we can remain in context. So tell the community that there is a part 2 of this.
Okay, because the part 2 will also contain examples, and you can see how the work has been done. So we will set that up. There was one comment from Graham who commented that he has a possible problem with one of the criteria, the faithful formatting. So the classic South African novels he'd like to upload was scanned directly into text files using OCR in the early 2000s. I don't have a that's probably a technical question for me, but maybe Alice has a quick answer because I'm very conscious of the time. This is a it's supposed to be lunchtime thing.
Yeah. No, I don't have all the answers, and indeed I can present this to other people that have taught me. But just quick. There are some file formats that we normally accept for WikiSource that I did not touch on. The first file format, obviously, is PDF. And there's one that I call Deja Vu, but the extension is the DJVU, which is very common with books that have been gotten like from Google Books as well as the Internet Archive. Now, the only workable solution as we speak right now would be to how can I say, rescan it, but that, a lot of time, money, and energy was invested in scanning that copy of that book then. But I'm going to ask around and I will have an answer for you.
Thank you. Graham, look out for that answer. I don't know if there are any other comments or any other questions that colleagues have. I hope this was a good introduction for you to WikiSource. You can see that there are different projects that one can get involved in. So it's not just about Wikipedia or the one one ref or that one is that one should be closer to our hearts. But they're different, and in Wikidata there are different projects to get involved in. And this might, if you're even looking at your own collection, I mean, there may be candidates for uploading to WikiSource. And a question that I do have that's in my mind is, well, how many South African language, is there a sub, what did you call it, a subdivision for what is on what is there on with the South African languages?
Ah,
Is
I must say that I think there are at least 2 or 3 languages. I will check also.
Because I think that's quite interesting, and a lot of the earlier texts will obviously be in the public domain as far as South Africa's public domain is concerned. Because Wikipedia, because the Wiki Foundation is in the States, a lot of it, the state's copyright and public domain does play a role, but I don't have a good handle on that. I am aware that it's copyright, as we know, is complicated. So we would just need to make sure that whatever we are uploading is in the public domain, certainly here in South Africa.
That's true. And when you speak of copyright, this is also an opportunity for us as librarians to get educated on the respective copyright laws of our countries. And also, as we are introducing this to other people, that we are introducing it to them and we can explain copyright very well. Though, what happens with one of the ways that people have been using to beat copyright is bypassing the geographical location and then saying, but it is in this language. Works in this language in my country. I are not bound by copyright. So people are also crafty out there, but it works.
Okay, colleagues, I don't know if anyone has any last comment, or if you want to unmute. I mean, I'm very conscious. It's 2:15 our time. So if there is anyone, you can probably unmute yourself. For like, or we can probably stay online for about a minute, and then I need to thank Alice for doing this. It's been long overdue. But thank you, Alice. I mean, WikiSource, I did not have a good handle on myself, so this has explained a lot to me, for me.
You are welcome.
Colleagues, yeah, colleagues, anyone with a last comment or anything like that? If anyone's put their hand up. I've not seen any hands. So,
All right, so let me
okay,
just say this, that when it comes to WikiSource, this is an area that provides a lot of promise and opportunity for us in Africa for a number of reasons. It's not yet crowded. And also, it suffers from a lack of knowledge. And information workers, as we are here, can fill in that gap.
yes,
Call it what you want, low-hanging fruit or whatever, but it is an area that is ripe for picking. And I hope more and more of us will be active, because and maybe who knows, we might host the first WikiSource in Africa conference, like they are hosting it in Indonesia next year. Who knows?
yeah. Oh, that would be quite exciting. I'm seeing some colleagues who are involved in special collections in the mix here, and I'm I'm just thinking that they would really be people to get involved. Well, there's a challenge. There's a challenge, and I mean, and just speaking for the chapter, I guess for the Wikimedia South Africa chapter, that would be something we would support. WikiSource conference. So yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. And we will talk again. Watch out for information about part 2. And the recording for this will in fact be up on the Liasa News channel at some point soon, I hope. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.